right. Let's see. I see our participants trickling in. We'll give them a couple of minutes. I realize it's now 1 o'clock, so we'll just wait a little bit and have everyone get started here. I'll give everyone about 20 more seconds. All right, it is 1 o'clock. This is a short 30-minute webinar. Thank you all for joining. My name is Bruce Orr, and I am with ProNovos. I'm the founder and CEO of ProNovos. And we also have joining us is Paul Atkinson with Smith & Howard and Kevin Bright as the product manager for ProNovos. Paul, it's a pleasure to have you join us. I'm a big fan of your work. I'm such a fan of Smith & Howard. Paul, I would love if you wouldn't mind taking some time just to tell us about who you are, what you do, why you do it, you know, the typical spiel as it relates to intros.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Bruce, and good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. So as Bruce mentioned, I'm Paul Atkinson, a partner with Smith & Howard, and I also lead the firm's construction practice. Thank you all for taking the time this afternoon to attend the webinar. We're excited to have you with us and look forward to showing off ProNovos, or having Bruce and Kevin show off ProNovos and show some of their great tools and the recent enhancements that they recently laid out. So for those of you that aren't familiar with us, we are a full-service accounting and advisory firm. We have a 50-year legacy of construction industry knowledge and partner with contractors across the nation to help them beyond just their core tax and audit compliance needs. In fact, 2 years ago, we announced our investment in ProNovos. Which you'll come to find out is a company that has developed construction intelligence that empowers contractors to run more efficiently and profitably. The platform helps connect teams to automate the reports and provides clarity on company and project trends. So without further ado, I want to head it back off to Bruce and to Kevin to go through the technology. You're really going to find it's cutting-edge technology, and we're going to pack a lot into 30 minutes here, so please bear with us. So Kevin and Bruce, take it away.
Well, thank you for that, Paul. Kevin, you know, I think that I'll be doing the audience a disservice if I didn't allow you to take a few minutes to talk about your background and what you do at ProNovos as well.
Yeah, so like you mentioned, I'm the product manager over here at ProNovos. So what that means is I oversee a lot of the features and functionalities. I meet with a lot of contractors to understand what their pain points are and how we can help kind of make their lives a little bit easier. And it's something I'm really passionate about, because before coming to ProNovos, I actually spent about 7 years doing project management in the construction industry. So I know a lot of what those day-to-day struggles can be, in particular when it comes to managing the financials, not only from an accounting standpoint, but also how the project management and the executives kind of feed into that process. So that's kind of the role of what I do at ProNovos and how I like to help.
Well, I appreciate that. And for anyone in the audience, at any point, if you have questions, please drop your questions in the Q&A section down below, and we'll make sure to address those throughout the webinar. However, the first thing that we like to talk about is how we offer value. So ProNovos focuses on 3 main groups of people within the construction firm, the project managers. We understand that you have jobs to do. You have to essentially do a project review, typically once a month. You have to forecast your costs. It's either your cost at completion or your cost to complete. You got to manage billings, change orders. ProNovos automates all of that for you. For the executives, we know that you have to focus on your WIP, revenue projections, cash flow, all of that. And for the accounting team, we help you do your job related to accounts receivable, specifically collecting, and then payables, billings, and analytics. And we'll talk more about that as we get into the product. Kevin, if I could get you to go to the next screen.
Yeah, and if I can just chime in I was just going to chime in real quick, Bruce, if I could. And I think what really we're trying to do at ProNovos is we want to emphasize that really the financial success of your company, it's really a collaborative effort, right? We understand the roles the project manager plays, the executives, the accounting team. It's not just, hey, the accounting person's responsible for this, or the PM's responsible for the profit margin on the job. It's really a team collective effort. And that's what we really try and emphasize is how can we each role has the data they need when it comes to the project financials to make sure they're making informed decisions and they've got their eye on the ball.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you adding that. And when you ask us the question, what gives us the right to exist, you will get one answer from anyone at ProNovos, whether it is an internal ProNovos employee or client. And it is, we exist to protect your profits and your cash flow. So what you see on your screen now is our way of helping you do that. So if I could get you to follow along, the first line that is outlined in the blue, change orders, project forecasting, revenue forecasting, we know that all of that is interconnected. And we show how they are interconnected, and that workflow is going to help you stop margin fade. In the orange outline items down below, the billings, AR, and AP, that is essentially helping you ensure that you are cash flowing on your jobs and as a company as a whole. However, in the center, the work in progress is one of the most important financial instruments that you have. And we put automation into that process that leads to a healthy financial statement. This process is what we automate for all of our contractors using ProNovos. And I will also say that project review is one of our latest features that we have added to ProNovos. Our project review allows project managers and the executives to sit down once a month and have a comprehensive overview of each and every project, so that when they forecast their cost, you know exactly how that was derived, and you know the challenges that came up during the course of construction. Project review is something that I know every contractor does. Paul, I'd love to hear from you. You have quite a few clients that you work with in this space, and I'm sure that that when you're looking at their WIP or you're helping them with the financial statements, you've heard your clients probably talk about this. I'm curious if you wouldn't mind sharing some of the things that you've discovered as it relates to either project review or some financial reporting challenges.
Yeah, so Bruce, you said a second ago there too, is like every client does this, which is true. Hopefully it's true for every single client does this, but the question really becomes, how often do they do this? And ideally, if you're running a business and have the ability to get the information on a timely basis, you're really doing this almost on a weekly basis, depending on how fast your jobs turn, because things can happen pretty fast, fast in a week, if not a month. And so if you're not looking at your jobs on a monthly basis at a minimum, you're really going to be losing control of how things are going, and then ultimately lose profitability on those jobs because you're just not having the information to be able to do that. So that's really the biggest challenge I see from our clients, is not having the ability to timely review their job performance to be able to make decisions that could hopefully ultimately lead to success in the job performance.
Well said. So speaking of timeliness, I think our next slide actually speaks to that. Some might ask, well, what is the best time to do certain activities? And typically what we found is what you see on your screen. as it relates to project managers, we know that they're looking at the cost, they're monitoring the cost to make sure that it's within the budget. We see them doing this daily or multiple times a week. When we consider the functions for the accounting and project managers, the weekly, it's looking at accounts receivable for the accounting department. Hey, are we getting paid on time? Payables, are we paying on time? Cash flow, how's that looking for us? For the project managers, I know this is an ideal situation, but if you could have your project managers review and forecast weekly, that will remove the element of surprise whenever you sit down and try to understand what's going on. Change orders, processing them. Everything on this screen is what we found that most best-in-class contractors are doing and when they are doing it. Kevin, anything you'd like to add to this?
No, I think what you really hit on was kind of, I think sometimes people think of their financials of like, hey, this is something we do once a month when we got to close out a month and we're updating our WIP, or when we're doing our quarterly financial statements. But it's really an ongoing process. And that doesn't mean you're doing everything every single day, but it's something you should be monitoring. And I think the big one that I always think of, and this goes back to my PM's day, is really making sure that you're on top of your cost and your project forecast. Because like Paul said, it's like things can get away from you really quickly. If you've got an activity that's running for 6 weeks, well, if you only look at the cost, once a month, you're going to be 67% of the way through, 2/3 of the way through, before you're going to notice if there's an issue. So the more frequently you can kind of be looking at your project costs, looking at your forecast to see if you're on track, the better chances you're going to have of taking early action to kind of stem the bleeding and kind of get back on a corrective course. So, that constant monitoring, it's not only about like looking in the rear view, it's making sure you're setting yourself up for future project success as well.
Yeah. So it's interesting. We have some clients, before they became clients, we ask them about the timeliness of when they do certain activities. Let's talk about the WIP report specifically. I remember one company in particular, they said they will do their WIP report every quarter, but they know that they need to do it more often than that. And sometimes change is hard to embrace. I'm curious, Paul, if you know a contractor doesn't have a schedule that is similar to this, where they're doing it quarterly or twice a year, do you have any suggestions in how they can embrace change to do certain activities more frequently?
Well, I think I could just say is stop and sharpen the saw. I think it's a Stephen Covey habit, one of the 7 habits. But honestly, it's one of those things. I think people have the excuse of this: I'm too busy to implement change and to do things that I know it's going to benefit my business, but I just don't have the time to do that. So if you keep making that excuse, or that's the reason as to the why you're not doing something, months or years go by and you're just doing the same thing over and over again, and what happens when you do the same thing over and over again? You get the same results, right? And so, if you have the opportunity to sit down and work on the business instead of just in the business, and carving out and setting aside those low priority stuff to be able to just, take the time to do something where you're implementing something that could radically change your business, people just need to do it. And so again, it's easier said than done, because, days are filled already with things to do, but it's really one of those things. It's people just need to make the time.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And typically one of the reasons why many contractors are not doing it as frequently is because it takes so much time to do. With ProNovos, we make this almost just seamless. You basically turn it on and your data's there, and you're ready to do the activities. And I know this is a product demo, so I don't want to take up too much time here in presentation slides. I think there's like 1 or 2 more. Kevin, if you wouldn't mind advancing to the next slide, we'll get through this. Project review, one of my favorites. So Kevin, I'm going to ask you this question. Why did we build the project review module?
Yeah, so I think what we heard from a lot of our clients that we worked with is they were all doing these monthly project status update meetings in one form or another. Some people called them project budget review meetings, other people called them job review meetings. I think we heard like 24 different names for it, but it was all essentially the same process where it was the project manager basically kind of reporting on the status of his projects or her projects to the executive team. And what we found a lot was there was just like a lot of tension and kind of angst about that process. It almost felt like the PM was on like the witness stand having to report back. So what we wanted to do was kind of formalize the process. So we kind of made it clear what the expectations were from both the PM and what the executive team was expecting to learn from that project review, and kind of streamline the process so it can kind of remove some of that tension, and not only remove the tension, but ease the process for the PM to get ready. So when you go into that meeting, it's not just about a reporting of numbers and getting stuck in rabbit holes and kind of, feeling like you're getting the third degree on what's happening in the project. It can be a more collaborative discussion because all of the work kind of reporting the nuts and bolts of the project is already done beforehand in the review. And then you can kind of meet just as a team and say, okay, what's still outstanding on this project? What do we need to do to make sure it's success? And it creates that much more collaborative environment as you're going through that review process.
I love it. I love it. All right, we got 14 minutes, and I think there's one more slide. I'll briefly go through that one. So ProNovos, we basically connect to just about any major ERPs out there: Computer Ease, Foundation, QuickBooks, Desktop, QuickBooks Online, Sage, 100, 300, Intact, Viewpoint Vista, Viewpoint Spectrum, and we pull this data into what we call a universal data model. So our integration process is very smooth, very seamless. If you have any desire of seeing your data on the ProNovos platform, reach out to us and we can sync your data, and we could tell you a story using your data. We could tell you the opportunities, your strengths, your weaknesses as a company. And without further ado, I think now it's time to actually show you the product in action. Kevin, take it away.
Yeah, so we're going to jump into the product here, and where I'm going to start is the WIP, because if you remember that slide that Bruce is going through, the WIP is kind of the central point of it all. I think that's what a lot of contractors use to really understand the project health from a financial aspect across all their projects. And you can really use it in a way to really understand, okay, not only is this something I need to produce once a month, but how am I performing as an organization? And the first thing I like to highlight in the ProNovos WIP is all of this data flows automatically from your accounting or your ERP system. So you're not having to export anything out of your accounting system. You're not having to upload anything into ProNovos. You're not having to manually enter anything. You're not having to worry about CSV files or any of that. Basically, what we do is every night we connect to your database and we pull that data automatically over. So right out of the bat, that takes a lot of the work in creating your WIP report off of it. And that's what we see a lot with contractors. They spend so much time just preparing the WIP report. It can sometimes be like a weeks-long effort that two things happen. One, by the time you're done putting the WIP report together, you're not actually analyzing the information because you spent so much time putting it together. And then two, the other problem we see is you spend so much time putting it together, like I said, maybe it takes weeks. By the time you finish it, all that data is out of date, right? If you're saying, okay, I'm looking at it on July 18th and I just finished my June 30th WIP. Well, all the data is, 3 weeks old now, and chances are you've had a lot of project costs, you've had a lot of billings. Maybe the actual picture of how our project performing has really changed. So us doing those nightly data syncs where you basically have up-to-date data every day, not only does it make sure that you are working from the most recent data, but it makes it a lot easier to focus on the analysis and not just putting together the WIP report. So what I'm showing at the top here is how we do it at ProNovos is we like to look at not only how individual projects are performing, but how else are you performing in the aggregate. So you can see some key KPIs up at the top. We're showing contract, earned revenue, bill to date, backlog, over under billings. What's great about this is you can really customize these KPIs to really fit your needs. So let's say you say, all right, I don't really care about bill to date or backlog, or maybe you do care about them, but they're not the key metrics. Maybe you want to look at cash received, or you want to look at profit margin or something like that instead. You can change these KPIs to really kind of fit your specific needs. And then right below that are a couple of visuals that you can also customize to kind of help tell the story of what's happening in your company. So it's a cliche for a reason, right? A picture's worth 1,000 words. You know, chances are you're going to identify a lot quicker looking at these charts, you know, what's happening than if you just look at the project list on your WIP. Real simple example, this chart here, it's basically telling me what's the profit margin on each job. I can go find, you know, which projects are struggling looking at my WIP schedule below, or I can just look at this and say, okay, I can see Craig Residence Hall's got a negative profit margin. So does Davy Hall. And I know, all right, these are two projects that I should start looking at immediately because they've got a negative profit margin and they're clearly going sideways and I need to get a handle of them. So just some quick ways that visuals can be a really powerful way to help you understand your projects. But then down below here, I think this is what most contractors think of when they think of what a WIP report is. It's basically going to be your project list, all of your active jobs, and then all of the financial metrics across each of those projects. So you've got your contract amount, projected final cost, profit, profit margin, job cost to date, percent complete, earned revenue, bill to date, over billings, under billings. So everything that you're used to in a WIP report is automatically getting populated. So again, you're not having to deal with updating Excel sheets or, you know, inputting values. All this is going to flow directly from your accounting system, so you can make sure you have an accurate WIP report. Bruce, let me kind of open it up to you. When we've worked with different clients, what are some of the benefits that you've seen from them kind of having that instant access to the WIP report?
You know, this typically is a manual process. Sometimes you have contractors that are entering this information into Excel by hand. You know, they'll enter the job to date cost and all the bill to date and all of that by hand. And then you have other contractors, they might have like some sort of queries that they can refresh through a macro that'll give them that information, which is great. That's a great step in the right direction. However, the most important element to this WIP is the forecasted cost that you receive from the project managers. And so what I hear often is we provide that streamlined automation where the project managers are in ProNovos entering the forecast, and that in turn is updating the WIP. And those two things combined has been, I think, the most value. There is a question, Kevin. Let's see. It is, are these the only columns that are available on the WIP, or are there more columns that can be added?
Now that's a great question. So right here, we've got this edit columns, and what you'll see is there's about 70 different metrics that we track at ProNovos that you can add to your WIP. So it's everything from, you know, cash received to date to what's your labor rate, what's your current month cost, profit, revenue. There's year-to-date revenue, cost, and profit. So really, we try and make this as flexible as possible. And I think we're up to about 70 different metrics now. And every time a client comes to us with a new one, we add it to this because if one client can benefit from it, our view is, hey, probably other contractors can as well. And what's great about this is it allows not only a lot of flexibility in creating your WIP report, but it allows you to do different type of analysis. And like I said, I think this is how we see a lot of contractors use their WIP report. Yes, there's kind of that official WIP that you need to produce to make sure your over and under billings are accurate. But a lot of contractors are using it more as kind of a bellwether of, hey, what's the financial health of these projects? And being able to edit those columns there, where you can look at different things like labor or billings or cash received, it helps you understand that full picture of what is going on for your financial health. And what's great about this is you can create different versions of your WIP report. So you can see out right here, I'm on my standard WIP report. If I want to just look at my labor columns, I can create a version of the WIP that only has the labor columns here. And now I can start to say, okay, let me look at just what's the picture of how I'm performing from a labor aspect on this project. Maybe this is a report I want to give to my foreman or my superintendent, so they are monitoring the labor budgets as they're proceeding on the project. So a lot of different ways that you can kind of report on different metrics of financial health for your projects.
Kevin, one of the key features that I think this has over Excel is the ability to see the historical information about a job. So if I'm the financial manager within a construction company and I want to understand how we got to where we're at, What's a way for me to see more detail about the job?
Yeah, so what you'll see is this arrow right here where you can click into a project and you're going to see kind of a more breakdown of everything that's happened on this project. So here's my current final contract and cost. Now what I can do here is I can update those amount and backdate it if I need to make a WIP update as of the end of the month. And I can also look back and see all the adjustments that I've made over time. And you can actually add comments to these adjustments here. So as you're kind of making those adjustments over, the months of the duration of a project, you can kind of see that history. So you're not looking back and say, okay, we had to write this project down $50,000 back in March. Why did that happen? You can add those notes directly to the project. And then let me go to a different project real quick. One other cool thing we do is we're actually going to show you kind of how your profit margin changes over time. So this is a very extreme example. You can tell this is the project we use in our demos, but basically you can see all of the adjustments that we've made over the course of the project and how it's impacted that profit margin. So not only are you looking at what's the current profit margin, but you can really understand that story of where did we begin on this project and where did we end up? And down below, and we might have time to get into this, is one of the other tools that kind of feeds into the WIP is our cost forecast tool, where the PM is actually going through the budget line item by line item and making adjustments to their forecasted final cost for each activity. And as they're making those adjustments, they're going to have to select a root cause for what's the reason that you went over a budget on your plumbing line item, or what's the reason you saved money on your concrete buyout. And as you're starting to collect those reasons and those root causes, we can start to aggregate it not only at the project level, but at a company level. So you can really start to understand, okay, what's driving the profit fade and the profit gain on different projects.
Nice.
So I know we only got a couple minutes left, but I do think I want to touch on the cost forecast real quick, because I think that's a real integral part of how the WIP works as a cohesive piece. So like Bruce mentioned, one of the key parts is updating this projected final cost. So you can come in here and just modify the value on the WIP directly. But what we see most of our clients and a lot of contractors doing is they update it at the individual line item. So if I click into this project here, it's going to open another tool on ProNovos that we call our cost forecasting tool, where this is where the project manager can actually go through and look at their individual line items and update the values. So there's a few different ways they can update it. They can either modify the projected final cost, they can modify the cost to complete, or they can modify the percent complete. And as they're making these adjustments, they're going to get an aggregate of what that forecasted final cost is. And then this little flag right here is going to tell you, hey, what the PM is now forecasting based on the adjustments that they've made, this no longer matches the value on the WIP. And then you can click here and then push the new forecasted value to the WIP report. So it's a really good way to make sure, hey, when you're going through your WIP report, not only is it based on your own kind of gut of where you think a project is, but you're having the most up-to-date information and adjustments from your project manager on the project.
I love it.
I was going to add, Bruce, real quick, and Kevin, is like, I would think on this screen right here, clients probably let you guys know that the product pays for himself probably on one job where we've identified a change order, by going through this process and say, oh yeah, we forgot that we, got overcharged for this, or we, this, that, and the other. And so let's just go back to that, the customer and, make sure we put that change order in right now. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's so true, Paul. I mean, I think that's something that we really try and emphasize is, I think when a lot of people talk about software, a lot of it's focused on, hey, does it make you more efficient? Can you take a 3-hour job and make it a 1-hour job? But a lot of the value to using data and analytics is catching the problem before it snowballs and gets out of control. And, that's what we see a lot is it's going to be a lot easier to fix something if you catch it early, and having a tool like this that allows that early detection of saying, hey, we may have missed something here, let's dig in a lot deeper. It really pays dividends, because when things go wrong in construction, it's typically not cheap. So yeah, if you can even find one of those, it usually pays pretty well.
No, that's right. Well, I know we have 1 minute left. I am launching a quick poll just to see if anyone out there likes what they see and would like to learn more, either through a live demo of the product. I know we only went through just a few things in ProNovos. We didn't have a chance to do cash flow or AR collections, but I'll leave this up just for a couple of seconds here. And all right. Well, just to be cognizant of time and respectful of everyone else's time, Paul, any closing remarks from you?
Not beyond just, kind of one of the questions or responses I provided earlier is, just making the time to invest in a product that's going to make you better. And I was just kind of thinking through as you guys were talking, it's just like, if you were just to take the time it takes to compile a job cost schedule just in one particular month and say, okay, I'm going to take that time and invest it in, in ProNovos to see what it could do for me, you'll get the payback of that instantaneously, as well as then on an annuity basis every single time you use the product going forward. And it's a tool that can be used by not just the accounting team or the project managers, the CEO. It's all of those people combined can multiply the value of this product infinitely. So the more people that use it, the better the company's performance is going to be.
Well, thank you for that. Thank you all for joining. Please be on the lookout for our other upcoming webinars. Kevin, Paul, I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I will catch you at the next event.
You too.
Thanks, guys.
All right. Thanks, everyone.